Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We thank you for being here. My name's Trevor Bradford. We're here as part of the Silicon Slopes legal chapter. Ben has agreed to do a wonderful presentation. We've got Honda here who's going to give the presentation. Want to give a shout out to the Vice Chair, Robert Snyder, who's here. And then I'm going to turn the time over to Ben.
Trevor, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I am Ben Lear. I am the managing attorney at Lear Immigration. And when I'm not doing that, I also speak to groups down here at Silicon Slopes and other places. And we wanted to start with our presentation. It's immigration issues in today's tech world. And I'll start with just a couple. I want to just tell you a quick story, and then I'm going to turn the time over to Honda, who's going to give you the substance of our presentation. You're all reading the news probably every day. We're seeing mobile alerts every day about a new immigration development. And a lot of times what happens is people come to us and they say openly, they say, hey, look, we're thinking of hiring this employee, or I know this person who's looking to immigrate. Do people even want to come here anymore? Is that something that's still happening? And it's a legitimate, fair question. And here's usually what we tell them. I tell them a story, and then I give them one statistic. So the quick story is this, and it represents a lot of the conversations we do have with clients who do want to immigrate here. And it's a story of a woman who, from another country, and was entering the workforce, and in her particular area, there just wasn't a lot of opportunities in her home country. So where did she go? She came to the U.S., right? And she worked all over. She worked in New York, she worked in New England, she worked in Chicago, and really learned her craft. And finally, back in her home country, after about 10 or so years, an opportunity opened up. So she went back there, and she rose almost to the top of her profession there in her home country. But really, the pinnacle of her profession was a position right here in the U.S. And so she came back, took the position here. And then, on national TV, just after winning a gold medal as a coach for the U.S. women's national soccer team in the Olympics, she was asked, she said, why does this mean so much to you? And she said, somewhat emotionally, but very sincerely, something she'd said before. She said, I was born in England, but I was made in America. Now, for those soccer fans out there, that story is the story of Emma Hayes, who coaches the U.S. women's national team. And lest you think that's just a story of one particular immigrant that's not particularly representative, just 3 weeks ago, the New York Times published a poll showing that 70% of immigrants who live here in the U.S., if they had the chance to do it again, they would. They'd still come, and they'd still come and try to be made in America. And so that's really the story we're going to talk about today, is if you're a business out there, you're thinking of expanding your business, looking overseas for talent, or you have workers here who are from overseas and you want to make sure you're in compliance and following the rules, that's what we're going to talk about, because there's people out there who want to come and they want to stay. So I will take the time now and turn it over to Honda Vieta, my colleague, and she will walk you through just some of the basics some of the basics if you're looking to bring employees in from overseas. Honda.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ben. Thank you so much. That was an amazing introduction. Let me introduce myself. I'm Honda Vieta. I'm an attorney at Lear Immigration. I'm one of the partners and founders of Lear Immigration. I've been an attorney in the United States since 2014. I'm also licensed in my home country, Brazil. I'm now licensed in Utah, Montana, Nebraska, and New York. And what we're doing today is we have tailored this presentation to the needs of the tech world so that we can explain some of the things things that are going on in the world today, the world of immigration and employment of foreign workers. And I feel like my job is also to show you, like on the slide, the path forward, as in we still see more good than bad when it comes to people wanting to come to the United States. And addressing one of the things that Ben talked about, do people still want to come to the United States? Oh, yes. Looking at the numbers of people coming into the United States to live and work since September 11th, the numbers have only gone up. And actually, if you look at the numbers since the 1800s, the 1900s, the numbers have only gone up. But since 9/11, they've gone up sharply, especially in the last few years. So even with all the adversity, all the things that we're seeing on the news nowadays, the United States is still welcoming immigrants, although not as warmly as in the past, let's put it this way. So let's move on to our first slide. As you are probably aware of, I'm preaching to the choir here, we all know that the tech industry relies heavily on foreign labor. And that is because there's a lot of talent out there that not only the tech industry wants to absorb and welcome to the United States, but that's what this country is about, right? I mean, I'm a result of this as well. I'm originally from Brazil. I was already an attorney licensed in Brazil when I had the opportunity to come to the United States for a master's degree. The idea at the time was for me to return to my home country. I didn't sell my car. I was planning on going back when I was done with my master's degree. Then I got here and I found out that there was something called an OPT, which means that after you finish college or a master's degree or a PhD in the United States, you are allowed to request a work permit, and you can stay here for an additional 1 to 2 years, and you can legally work in the United States. I took advantage of that. That turned into a job offer from my employer at the time. And that means that I went through all the ups and downs of trying to stay in the United States, waiting for a decision from USCIS. There were so many times that I would think about going back to Brazil because why do I want to stay in a country that is making it so hard for me to stay here? And then I would get a notification that my case had somewhat advanced. So that would make me feel okay for another couple of months. And now I've been a U.S. citizen since, I believe, 2016. That is the story of so many people that have come to this country, and also the story of many people that have yet to come to the United States. And there are many stories like this in the tech world. So just a couple of numbers between 2019 and 2024 that I was able to find to add to this slide. 20% of the U.S. workforce is foreign-born. That is a huge number. 39% of U.S. software developers are immigrants. Silicon Valley, then we're talking about 66% of tech workers being foreign-born. That means that if those people can no longer stay in the United States or foreign workers are not allowed to come to the United States, we're in trouble, right? So why does tech employers depend so much on global talent? Well, because there's a lot of good things in the world. There aren't enough workers in the United States in a variety of industries, not just the tech world. So foreign workers are needed, immigrants are needed for the United States. This is just not something that the United States can now afford to completely close its borders and rely on U.S. workers. There just aren't enough people in the United States, born in the United States, allowed to work in the United States right now to absorb all of these positions. So that leads us to a couple of options, and that's where we dig deeper into immigration. There are a number of visas available if you want to come and work in the United States, or if you are an employer and you want to hire foreign-born citizens to work in the United States. You are probably quite familiar with the H-1B, which is heavily used in the tech world. Right now, the H-1B has been hit with the new $100,000 fee, which has reshaped and kind of shook up the world of 1B visas. Now, there's light at the end of the tunnel. I have a friend who used to say, and it's not a train coming our way, but the light at the end of the tunnel is that there are exceptions to this $100,000 fee. If you are renewing your H-1B, if you are extending your H-1B, you are not subject to the $100,000 fee. If you can show some type of national interest, if you would have to show also that you're not a threat to the United States, but that you are needed, that there are no U.S. workers to fill in the position. So there are ways to not have to pay this fee, but many positions, unfortunately, there's nothing that they can do. They still have to pay this fee. So we are also, things are so new and so dynamic in the immigration world now, we are still observing to see what's going to happen in the future. But we all believe that there's going to be a huge number of H-1B workers or eligible workers that could qualify for an H-1B that will not be able to come to the United States simply because the employer cannot afford this quite hefty fee, right? The L1 is another good option as well. That allows people that own businesses in another country to open a business in the United States or to be transferred from one company abroad to their location in the United States. A person in an L1 visa can come to the United States with their family. They can work in the United States. They can live in the United States. And after a number of years, they qualify for a green card. So that opens the door for them to stay permanently in the United States. The E2 is another very good option if you want to invest in a business in the United States and you come from a country that allows you to do that, that is part of the E2 treaty. You can do that as well. O1s are a wonderful option if you are a worker that has some type of extraordinary ability. We have worked with a number of O1s from robotics engineers to Latin Grammy winners. O1s apply to pretty much any type of profession, provided that you can show some type of extraordinary ability. TNs are also a great option. They are based on the free trade agreement between United States, Mexico, and Canada. So it's a wonderful way to get workers to stay in the United States from Mexico and Canada. And then we go to J1s and F1s. Skills are not necessary for these types of positions, but these are visas that allow people to either come and study in the United States, and that can open the doors for the student to qualify for authorized work, as well as J1s, which are, it's called the cultural exchange visa. Many ski resorts in Utah, for example, have many workers come on J1 visas just for the ski season. The hospitality industry relies heavily on J1s to come to the United States. And then there are a few others that I didn't add here. The Q visa, it's also known as the Disney visa. It's the one that Disney companies use to bring people from all over the world to work at Disney parks. So next time you go to Animal Kingdom or Disneyland Adventure, when you see someone with a tag that shows that they're from France or that they are from Germany or Kenya, they're probably working under a Q visa. So these are some of the options that we have available right now. And these doors are still open. We get approvals every day. And I like to say that this is kind of my role here, because if you're watching the news, if you are watching TikTok videos, if you're paying attention to social media, you only get the bad things, right? Unfortunately, it's all true. The bad things are happening. But there are more good things happening. There are more approvals than denials. There are more people getting to stay in the United States than leaving the country or getting deported. One thing that I like to do every time that I see something on the news is I like to compare news articles. And first, because I want the facts. I want to understand what's going on. And usually I have to go to a minimum of 3 or 4 articles to get the whole picture. But also because many of the writers, they are not well versed in immigration law. So the moment that I read an article, I can immediately spot, there's something missing here. No, this couldn't have happened with this set of facts. So recently, we've all seen a number of people being taken into custody by ICE agents at green card interviews. There's usually a basis for that. There are people out there, just like the recent case here at the Salt Lake City International Airport, there are people who, even though are trying to find a legal way to stay in the United States, they might have had a removal case, they might have a removal order issued by an immigration judge that they may not be aware of. They may have missed a hearing at some point, and if you miss a hearing and you are in deportation proceedings or removal proceedings, you will get an order from the judge. If you don't show up, the judge will rule against you. And many people don't understand that, and they just don't show up because they are afraid. Oh, because a friend told them not to do that. For us attorneys, big no-no. So what you see on the news is true, but it's only a sliver of what is really going on in the immigration world. The scenario is not totally bleak. There are a lot of things that we attorneys have had to learn and get up to speed. Things have changed, but not to the point that all the doors are closed. And these are just some of the ways that the tech industry, for example, can still benefit from having foreign workers come to the United States and fill in positions that cannot be filled in by people in the United States right now. In addition to those options, we also have what's called employment-based green cards. So these are not necessarily visas, but they take the applicant straight to a green card, and then after 5 years, the person will qualify for naturalization. The EB-1 is a wonderful option because right now it's the only option that is current. When I say that it's current, that means that you can file all your forms, the entire application at once. You don't have to wait for your priority date. What does that mean? All the other options, EB2, EB3, EB4, you have a priority date, which means that once you start your application, you lock in the priority date. That's when your case was accepted by USCIS. And then you might get an approval, but you won't get your green card until your priority date. And then you have to look at something called the Visa Bulletin, which is issued every month by USCIS, to see what the delay is. Some cases can take as long as 10 years for you to get to your priority date. Some cases are not that far behind, a year or two, and then you get your interview and you're set, okay? So just a brief overview of what these options are. And then, of course, the EB-5, another very good option, the golden visa. That one has suffered some big changes now in the Trump administration. We'll see what's going to happen to this program in the next administration or in the next, now, 3 years. Now that we've talked about these types of visas, we're going to start walking into the world of I-9 compliance. And why is this important? That's important because every single industry, every single business, every single employer in the United States need to be I-9 compliant. That means that if you have workers working for you, you need to make sure that you're doing things right and that you are hiring the right people. That's, in simple terms, that's what I-9 compliance is. And if you have foreign workers, then you need to make sure that they are authorized to work in the United States. That's why those visas are so important, because they open the doors for these people to get what's called an EAD, an employment authorization document. And of course, if you have to be I-9 compliant, that opens the doors to a number of things that you should be doing. You have to make sure that you're complying with USCIS, the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. You have to be compliant with the Department of Labor, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. And when we talk about these types of situations, I added here a headline that was all over the news a couple of months ago, and that was the ICE raid that took place at a Hyundai plant in Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken, right? Of course, this type of large-scale ICE raid is not likely to happen that often, especially in this case. But in this case, given the number of workers coming from South Korea and the number, the types of investment and the money coming into the country, that led to a large-scale investigation that prompted ICE agents to show up at this location, and hundreds of workers were taken into custody on that day, including people that were authorized to work, and also including people that, even though they didn't have work authorization, they were allowed to perform the duties that they were there for. Let me give you an example. If you come into the United States on a B1 visa, we usually, if you're a foreigner and you come to the United States as a tourist, you're going to get a stamp on your passport that says usually B1/B2, because they are usually given together. That's business/tourism, right? So let's say you want to come to the United States. You're not really going to be working. You're not going to be paid in the United States, but you're coming here to attend conferences. Maybe you're coming here because your company has a location in the United States. You're going to be training workers in the United States. You are not technically working. You don't need a work permit, but you are engaging in training and conferences and meetings. All you need is a B1 visa. There were several people at the Hyundai plant who were not here for a very long period of time, but they were attending meetings on a B1 visa, and they were taken into custody as well. So we also know that whether ICE agents are not being very well prepared, or they are just turning a blind eye to doing things right, that's why we hear so many stories about people, even U.S. citizens, being taken into custody, right? But that leads us to, why is I-9 compliance so important? Just like for every company in the United States, every time you're growing, there's the need to hire more people. And the more people you're hiring, the more necessary it is to make sure that all the paperwork is done correctly. And that's when it's very important for you to check employment authorization documents. Now, is all you have to do check if the document has expired on its face or not? Actually, not really. There are many people out there walking around with unexpired EADs that on its face, the document has not expired, but maybe in the system it has. Maybe in the system, this person's immigration status has been revoked. That has been the situation with many TPS applicants right now, temporary protective status, which has terminated for people from countries like Venezuela and other countries. So it's very important to know exactly if you are hiring people that are truly legally authorized to work in the United States. Form I-9 is a form that you need to fill out. You have to make sure that's filled out timely. The employee needs to do that on day one. Employer has up to 3 business days to get that done. You need to keep that in your work location so that if you have to show the documents, if there's a raid or some type of investigation, you don't have much time to go either look for the documentation or even produce it. This is not something that you can do after the fact. And why is that? That is because there are a number of fees that apply, and these can be quite hefty. If you look at this image here, it shows that I-9 non-compliance fees can range anywhere from $100,000 to $95 million, of course, because they are based on the number of violations, whether they were willful. In order to reduce how much you're paying in fees, if you can prove that you did your best, you tried really hard to comply, to keep track of all the documentation, then you can get reductions. But these fees can be very, very high. So when you look at the fines start anywhere between $272 to over what's the number there? 27,000 per violation. And that's where they can get, that's where a business can find itself having to spend so much money due to I-9 non-compliance, because the fee, or the fine rather, is paid per violation, not even per employee, but per violation that they find. higher fines for repeated or willful violations, potential criminal penalties for knowing employment was unauthorized, which is something that happens a lot in several different industries, increased risk of ICE audits, which is something that we're seeing more and more now as opposed to in the past, and of course reputational harm, disruption to operations. Of course, if your workers cannot show up to work, what's going to happen to your business? Can your business go for 2 or 3 days with a reduced workforce? I think the answer is going to be no for most companies in the United States. So what are some of the best practices that we believe tech employers should have in mind and put in place at their workplaces? First of all, centralized I-9 process with periodic internal audits. That is very important because when you are dealing with foreign workers, you have to make sure not only that their employment authorization documents are still good, but also that they remain in status. They might have a document that is valid for 5 years, but if they miss a deadline to extend their visas prior to the expiration of the EAD, that immigration status, like I said before, may be revoked, but they still carry around a document that seems legit. It was issued by USCIS, but maybe they are no longer authorized to work in the United States. So that means that you, as the employer, could be in trouble because you are not constantly checking if your employers can work for you. Using digital systems for I-9, which is also a great way to keep track of all documentation rather than having a copy of everything in a file somewhere and then not being able to find those documents. Train all HR and hiring managers on document review so that they are well-versed and they know what they are looking for and what questions to ask. Maintain a tickler system or some type of time management tools, and that is so that you don't keep track of everything that is going on in your business, because the more the more employees you have, the better you have to be at keeping track of all the necessary documentation. Keep always separate folders. That also helps in case you get audited, in case someone shows up at your work location and they request documents, you can easily find them and pull them out. Now, you don't usually have to do that on the spot. Usually you have time to call your attorney and you have a few days to come up with the documentation, but it's usually 2-3 days. It's not like you have a whole month to come up with that documentation. One thing that we always suggest is to conduct preemptive I-9 audits. So one thing that we do a lot for our clients is before the need to comply with an I-9 audit, we run our own internal audit to make sure that everything is in place. Therefore, if the business indeed gets audited, the steps to fix errors have already been made. So that is one of the ways to decrease possible fines, because we are showing that, yes, at one point a violation was made. We can't erase the past, but we can show that at some point in time, the moment the employer was made aware of these violations, changes were made and no other violations have been done moving forward. And that is very important, being able to show good faith, being able to show that even though a mistake happened, you're trying, right? What are some of the most common I-9 mistakes? Incomplete forms, that happens a lot. Missed deadlines. It's very important not to miss deadlines. We attorneys know that. We live in a world of deadlines. I like to tell members of my team that if we have a deadline on a certain date, my deadline has to be a few days before the official deadline. I can never wait until the very last day to file something. Missing signatures or dates on documents. These are things that happen. Incorrect version of I-9. We need to make sure that we're always dealing with the most current version of any type of form. And of course, incorrect supporting documents. Now, the best way to connect immigration strategy and compliance is to make sure that you are well-versed in both worlds. You need to comply with all the rules and regulations to hire foreign employees, But then it's also necessary to have a basic understanding of immigration, and not only that, but the visa this person is under, whether it's an O1, an H-1B, whether this person was just granted a green card through a EB-2 NIW or an EB-1. So in the tech world, especially because of the number of foreign workers, it's very important to know the connection between I-9 compliance and immigration. Current trends and positive outlook. Again, I really like to end any type of presentation or conversation that we have with a positive outlook, because as an immigration attorney, I do see mostly approvals every single day, you know. Things have certainly changed in the immigration world in the United States in the past, okay, it's December, so in the past 11 months alone. But there's a lot of good things happening. We are still seeing a record number of immigrants coming into the United States and foreign workers coming into the United States with a variety of visas. So I'm going to stop here. I always like to do Q&As, because that's a way for me to learn what your needs are and be able to clarify anything that maybe I didn't dig too deeper into, or just to know a little bit more about what's happening in with your businesses or your companies or positions. So now I'm going to allow you guys to ask some questions, so just fire away. Thank you.
I have a dozen questions, but I take
Let's get started.
the end of your presentation. In terms of the I-9 compliance and audits, I'm assuming that there's no distinction between a W-2 employee and a 1099. Is that correct?
In terms of I-9 compliance, there is not. The difference is going to be the type of documentation that you will need, and of course you have to make sure that if you have someone working as a 1099, it has to truly be a 1099. Let me give an example. It's very common for some people that start as a 1099 to be treated as a W-2. That is I-9 non-compliance violation, because if this person is working every day at your location, if they are clocking in and out, they are technically not a 1099. They should be a W-2. So that could lead to a violation. So very good question. We see that happening a lot, especially because of this connection between immigration and labor laws and I-9 compliance. We have people that come to us and say, well, this person is not authorized to work, so what if we hire them as an independent contractor? It's still a no-no. They have to be authorized to work in the United States, and they have to be treated as a 1099. Otherwise, they will have to have an EAD, and they need to be hired as a W-2.
In terms of, are there any carve-outs or exemptions from I-9 and I-9 audits for small businesses?
Right now, there is not. Some of the exceptions that exist, they do happen on a case-by-case basis, so we really need to work with our client to make sure that they truly qualify, because when in doubt, it's better to comply to make sure that you don't find yourself in violation of I-9 compliance and you're not subject to those hefty fees.
I'm pulling an audible here. But are there any other questions?
Oh, you said 12. We did only 2. We're down to 10 now.
Well, the problem is I didn't have a writing instrument to write the questions.
We should have handed those out.
So, but for instance, and some of these are less important than others. I asked the important ones up front, but why does Disney use that, what was Q1?
The Q visa.
Make sure we repeat the question in case.
Oh, yes.
In case
So-
it can't be heard out there.
So the question is, why is it that Disney uses the Q visa? There's basically a visa for each letter of the alphabet, right? So the Q visa it's a lot like the J visa in the sense that, and even the H visas, in the sense that first the employer has to become qualified to bring in foreign workers under that visa. So once they go through this first step of becoming qualified, it becomes easier for them to apply for like a blanket petition for a Q visa. What does that mean? That means that you don't have a worker that you're hiring. Some businesses know, I need to hire Ben Lear for this position, so I'm going to apply for a visa for this one specific worker. That's usually a lot more expensive because you are paying one fee for one worker. With blanket positions, you can actually file one petition, one application for a number of workers, okay? So J visas, Q visas allow you to do that. Even the H visas allow you to do that. You have the need for a high number of workers under that visa, so you file a blanket petition, and then you are able to get a number of workers on a regular basis. They are not living in the United States, as in they are not staying here forever. It's kind of like a cultural exchange program. They come here from their home countries. Maybe they are going to college. They take a semester off. They spent a couple of months working at Disney, and then they go back to their home countries. They worked. They have work for Disney on their resumes. They brushed up on their English speaking and writing skills because they come from another country, so English is not their native language. So there are incentives that come with these types of visas. And the Q visa is known as the Disney visa just because that is the one that Disney qualified for, so everybody or most of their foreign workers come through the Q door. But I'm pretty sure that given the multitude of companies that they have, they probably have H visas, L visas, they probably have all the letters of the alphabet at this point.
I'm pulling an audible here. Any other questions? And then I'm going to take the opportunity after you're done, because I always like quizzing Honda because I learn a lot because she's our one of our two brains here. Our other third brain is off with his wife who's in labor. Any other questions? Go ahead, Trevor.
You're down to 9.
We've got a lot of ski resorts here in Utah, and I think you said that they use J1, is that?
Mostly the J visas.
Let's repeat the question, make sure.
So the question is, with all the high number of ski resorts here in Utah, you're asking what type of visa or what the J visa is? The J visa, again, very similar to the Q visa in the sense that once the ski resorts qualify for J visas, they are able to bring in people from different parts of the world through the J program. In addition to that, there are services out there that, this is not the ski resort per se, but they contract with a company that finds J applicants throughout the world, and they do the bridge between this person who is a college student in Brazil, for example, wants to come to the United States to work for a number of months, and then they come and they work on the J1 visa. And I remember that because when I was in college, when I was going to law school in Brazil, I wanted to spend a semester abroad. And there was a company in Rio, where I'm from, and they offered student visas and also J visas, and they had a list of places you could work in the United States. And among those places, they had a number of ski resorts: Vermont, Utah, Lake Tahoe, so students would come here. And it's a win-win situation because it's cheap labor, right? These people are coming here for the opportunity to experience life in the United States, not just work. They work during the day. They can ski for free. They are living in the United States. It's a dream for many people to spend some time away from their home countries. They are learning how to speak English. And that makes things a lot easier because the ski resorts, for example, they don't need to hire someone for 12 months. They only need those workers from November through April or May. So in this situation, it's a win-win, and it's become something quite profitable also for these companies that do the bridge between the employers here in the United States and employees outside the United States that want to come here for those opportunities.
Yeah. So let's repeat the question. Go for it.
So the question is, how do you find good HR managers or people well versed in all the issues involving hiring someone that also involves immigration issues, especially if you're a smaller employer? You mentioned smaller employers, which have more limited resources to do those types of things, right? So there are two ways to do that. You can either luck out and find someone that is very well versed in these two worlds, or one of the services that we offer, for example, like many other law firms do, is I-9 compliance together with immigration knowledge, so that you are dealing with someone, you have an attorney, someone who knows the ins and outs of I-9 compliance and immigration, and can train your managers so that they know exactly what type of documents they are looking for. And when someone comes to you, when an employee comes to you with documentation that you don't know, maybe you were not trained for that or things have changed, you have someone, you have legal help that you can go to and say, can you take a look at this and just make sure that we are I-9 compliant? That way, you are not paying for an attorney to be there all the time. For a small employer, that can be way too expensive, practically prohibitive at this point. So if you have a team of attorneys that you can turn to just for them to take a look at those documents, just for them to give the okay, then it's less likely that you will be hit with any violations, because not only you are trying to be compliant, but you're showing good faith in making sure that you know what you're doing.
We have maybe about a minute left, and so I think this would be a good place to finish. I just want to finish with kind of a big picture question. Honda, if when a business client comes to us, or if a new client comes to us and who's looking to bring in folks from overseas, what's the one thing you would say where to start? What's the one thing they need to start doing and we can help them do to get that process going?
I actually had a meeting yesterday that answers this question, and my homework for the client was, I need to know how many people you're planning on bringing in every year, how long they're planning on staying in the United States, what positions they will be filling in, because that will tell me which visas we are looking at and how I'm going to make this financially feasible for this business. Because one option, for example, let's say the business comes to me. Ben has a business, he has a resort, and he wants to hire 10 employees. And he comes to me and says, how can we get this done? I cannot answer that question yet. A very typical answer for attorneys, right? Because I need to know, if you want these people to work for you indefinitely, I know what the answer is. Might be an EB-3. We're going to start the process with the Department of Labor. We're going to get these foreign workers qualified to work in the United States, and then we're going to request green cards. And then you're going to have these workers available to you indefinitely. They can also find other jobs once they get their green cards and no longer work for you. Is that worth it for you? Is the money you're going to be spending on this worth it? Now, let's say you operate 12 months of the year, but of course during the summer months, you need an increased number of workers because you have more people staying at your resort. We are no longer looking at a green card application. We're going to be looking at H visas, J visas, something that allows you to increase the number of foreign employees just for a short period of time throughout the year, and that means that that's financially feasible for you because you are not committing to 12 months when technically you only need people or more people working for you for a couple of months out of the year. So these are some of the questions that I need to know. I need to know the industry. I need to know more about the type of business. I need to know how much they're growing, because maybe the plan that I start preparing today might change by next year if this is a business that is experiencing rapid growth, for example. So this would be my homework. Come back to me with numbers so that I can get the big picture and make things doable for you, because we also take into consideration how much money this is going to cost. USCIS fees, depending on the type of visa, they are not cheap. For certain types of visas that are not linked to a certain employer, there's no guarantee that once this person has their visas approved, that they have their position granted in the United States, that they have to stay with the same employer. So that is another thing that we need to take into consideration.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you to Trevor at the Silicon Slopes Legal Chapter for organizing this. Thank you to Silicon Slopes for providing us with this space. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to us here. You can visit our website. And we look forward to doing this again sometime. And we're hoping that we've given you some solutions that'll help you, guide you through looking to hire folks from different countries. So thanks very much.
Thank you.